We're back for college basketball best bets here on Saturday, November 15th. Yesterday was, one hell of a ride, wasn't it? High Point, they're just like banned, I guess. I don't know, guys. Like, every year we look at High Point, they win the Big South, they're a tournament team, and then whenever you actually watch High Point and bet on High Point, they forget how to play basketball. Colorado wins, that's cool. Cal Baptist doesn't cover by like 2.5 points, and of course, UCLA found a way to not cover 3.5. They should have won that game, and they went ice cold the wrong time. And then don't even get me started about the Manhattan Jaspers. Like, I don't know who was worse yesterday, High Point or Manhattan. Probably High Point still, but Manhattan, I mean, this is a team that averages 95 points a game. They didn't even put up 50 against Hawaii. They couldn't grab a rebound. This team couldn't score. I think they actually put up 55, but I mean, they lose by 30 points. I mean, that was the most disgusting effort I've ever seen in a basketball team ever. Either them or the High Point Panthers. Both of those teams suck, and I don't know what to say. But something about Hawaii games, man, they are the absolute worst. Anyways, folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more daily college basketball best bets here on the channel. Later today, we're going to have our NBA best bets on the channel as well. Today is Saturday, college football day. We've got our full college football predictions linked in the description down below. That's over 4 hours of Week 12 college football predictions, so you're not going to want to miss that video. Also on the channel, our NFL predictions, best bets later today at noon and 5 p.m. today for the NFL, and our UFC 322 predictions and best bets are on Greedo Plays MMA. Again, that is later tonight from Madison Square Garden over in New York City. Okay, on to the first of our 5 best bets today for college basketball. Kicking things off with an early spot, Big East versus ACC. I know we picked against the Big East yesterday. I have confidence in the Georgetown Hoyas. Is that bad? Is that bad? I actually have confidence now in Georgetown. And really, all you need to look at is Georgetown's victory at Maryland. Now, I get it. Different Maryland team. Derek Queen's now in the New Orleans Pelicans and in the NBA. I get that. Georgetown's 3-0. I know they were really bad last year. It was embarrassing how bad they were, considering they still had, Thomas Sorber was there, who's now in the NBA. Jaden Epps, who's now at Mississippi State, played some good basketball last season, and they still found a way to, they still found a way to go 8-12 in the Big East. I know they still went to the Crown and lost in the second round, but you expect more out of the Georgetown Hoyas on a yearly basis. This is a very, prestigious university in terms of basketball, at least historically. It's time they get their head on straight. I mean, it's a team that hasn't been in the tournament since, 21? Was the last time this team went to the tourney? Atrocious stuff. Anyways, though, I'm taking the Hoyas to beat Clemson tonight. Biggest reason was 2, KJ Lewis, the way he's playing so far this season, and Malik Mack. Malik Mack is the best returning player from the Hoyas last season. This is a guy, again, it was him, Epps, and Sorber were the lead scorers last year for Georgetown. Malik Mack is back now for his junior year. Started at Harvard last year, first year with the Hoyas, averaged 13-ish points per game. Now he's back again for his senior year. KJ Lewis, Arizona player, played big bench minutes every single game for the Wildcats last year. Again, that's a good team, don't get me wrong. I know they kind of retooled their lineup a little bit, but KJ Lewis last year averaged 25 minutes off the bench for the Wildcats, now goes to DC, goes to the Big East, and now he's a starting player on the Hoyas. He's been phenomenal so far this year. He's averaging 17 points per game. Again, Georgetown's biggest win this season is a win on the road at University Park against Maryland. I get it, relatively close game, obviously, going from DC to Maryland, but still a huge victory to go out there and get in front of 17,000 people. Georgetown wins the basketball game. They win it by 10 against a good Maryland team. Miles Rice scored 27 in 19 minutes in that game for the Terrapins, and Georgetown still finds a way to win off of 19 points out of Malik Mack and 16 points out of KJ Lewis. And that's what you're just going to see a lot out of the Hoyas, and now they are back at home in DC at the Capital One Arena for a huge game against the Clemson Tigers. Clemson is 3-0 this season, but they haven't played anybody yet. They beat New Hampshire, they beat Gardner-Webb, and they beat Morehead State. Exactly. They haven't played anybody just yet. Clemson still has some of the pieces from last season, but really not that many. That was a bad way of putting it. Dylan Hunter's back. Hunter is now a senior, if I'm not mistaken, for Clemson. He's back with this team. Other than that, though, there are really no more returning starters to this squad. Dylan Hunter, again, started some games last season, but was a primary rotational piece for them. He's really the only returning main rotational guy for the Clemson Tigers. If you remember, obviously, Ian Shefflin, Victor Locken, both those guys are gone. Chase Hunter is now gone as well. All those guys graduated. So, obviously, like you do now in college basketball, Clemson goes out and just totally rehauls the lineup, brings in a bunch of transfer players. They are 3-0 with victories over, again, New Hampshire, Gardner-Webb, and the Morehead State Eagles. Okay. I'm not too impressed by this team right now. Again, it is a complete transfer starting lineup, essentially, plus Dylan Hunter. At the 2 right now, the 3 right now, they're going with RJ Godfrey, who is a transfer from Georgia. Carter Welling is off the bench. He was supposed to start, I believe, at the beginning of the season, but they're starting Jake Wallen, who is a sophomore out of Utah. They've got Nick Davidson at the 5, who played at Nevada last year. You got players, sure, but I don't know. It is just a mid-major super team of sorts. And I look at the Hoyas. I like what Georgetown's doing. I like KJ Lewis quite a bit. I know, again, last year they were not competitive. They were not that great with Sorber. Epps, hell, Micah Peavy was on that team too. But I like Malik Mack quite a bit. I think KJ Lewis can hoop as well. I think their pieces off the bench aren't bad either. On top of that as well, Georgetown's at home. Guys, I need the Georgetown Hoyas to actually play competent basketball again. I think it's better for the sport when Georgetown is good. And I think, again, I don't know if they're ever going to return to their powerhouse days of the early 2000s. But I think they're going to be perfectly fine to match up here against Clemson. They are underdogs at home, but I do think them being at home makes the biggest difference here. Again, in DC, at the Wizards Arena, I believe they're going to go out there and get a W. They've looked pretty good defensively so far this season. I think they can shut down a Clemson team who has not been tested just yet. Again, I was very surprised Georgetown went on the road and beat Maryland early in the year, considering what happened to them last year and the fact that Sorber and PV are gone, but they've looked good so far this year, and I have quiet optimism now around the Georgetown Hoyas in 2025 and 2026, so we shall see on that. But give me Georgetown to straight up beat the Clemson Tigers at home. Give me plus 100 for the Hoyas to beat Clemson. On to our second best bet of the video. Let's go and fade Boston College yet again. BC is on the road in Philadelphia to take on the Temple Owls, and we are going to be taking Temple to straight up just beat Boston College. Guys, BC is a plus 120 dog here. They are 1-2 so far this season, and they shouldn't even be a plus 120 dog in this game, okay? This is pretty automatic, in my opinion, that Temple is going to win. Boston College, we said at the beginning of the season, opening night, it was on the thumbnail of the first college basketball best bets video we made this year, Boston College and Florida Atlantic. Obviously, FAU won the game, and I said right there, Boston College, to me, looked like the worst team in the ACC this season. At least very bottom of the barrel, but you can definitely make the argument that they were dead last and absolute the worst in the conference. And they weren't great either last year. They were, again, like bottom 5 last year in the ACC. But you just look at this roster, there's no one that really impresses me. And, again, they lose to FAU. They beat the Citadel. Awesome. You beat them by 29 points. The worst loss you could have possibly imagined at home in Boston, you lose a bye game to Central Connecticut. Yes, the Blue Devils were plus 17.5 point dogs on the road and plus 1,300 on the money line, and the Blue Devils walk into BC and win the game against Boston College. Central Connecticut University won that. Unbelievable stuff. And now you're asking this Boston College team who has zero momentum, they're ice cold, they just lost a bye game to, Central Connecticut, who plays in the NEC, and if you've watched NEC basketball, they don't score, every game's low scoring, there's no real playmakers in that league for the most part. I know LIU sometimes has guys, but it's not a very good conference, and it's a conference that for the most part just goes out and takes bye games all the time, like the SWAC and like the MEAC, because their teams need money. Yeah, Central Connecticut beat Boston College. And now BC is going to go to Temple. And I'm not trying to tell you Temple's some juggernaut this season. I think they're okay, obviously, out the American Conference. I will tell you they are better, though, than the Temple Owls. The Boston College Eagles. Temple last season went 9-9 last year in the American Conference, 17-5 as a whole, lost in the first round of the American tournament to Tulsa. And this was a team last year who was, pretty clearly led by Jamal Mashburn. Mashburn averaged 22 points per game. When he played, I know he dealt some injuries. He was absolutely massive for them. Zion Stanford took up, some of the scoring when, in replacement of Jamal Mashburn at times in games where Mashburn was out. Zion Stanford now at Villanova. Regardless, though, and who was their other big scorer? It was Steve Settle, who's now, I believe, in the G League, who's a senior last year. So, again, this team had players last year. I understand. This is more so, I think Boston College is absolutely awful than, I'm, head over heels on the Temple Owls. But so far this season, they've been led by 2 players scoring-wise. That is Aiden Tobiasen, who is a sophomore from Temple, or he's at Temple last season. Started pretty much every single game for them last year. It didn't really score. Again, they had Jamal Mashburn and company, so they had guys. But again, he's averaged 19.5 points per game so far this season. And, maybe the most notable guy I would say is Darian Ford. I think he probably will be the leading scorer when the season ends. This is the guy who was a 10-plus points per game scorer at Arkansas State. Started at Arkansas, again, played the last 2 years with the Red Wolves. Now he's starting with the Temple Owls. He's been good so far. This is a Arkansas guy who's born in Arkansas, played high school basketball at Arkansas, and now at Temple. Boston College is just awful, though, guys. They are very bad. We talked about them at the beginning of the season. Somehow it's gotten worse for them. Like, somehow, again, losing that game to FAU on the road, not great, but I get it. Losing to Central Connecticut at home is just unbelievably bad. Teams led in scoring by 2 players. That'll be Donald Hand Jr., the junior from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Has played at Boston College all 4 seasons, averaged 15.5 points per game for them last year. He's averaging 16 this season. And then Chase Forte, who we talked about quite a bit to open up the year. He's a South Dakota transfer, not South Dakota State, but the South Dakota Coyotes. So I got to see him play a lot last year in the Summit League. He was a really good player for South Dakota. By far their best guy, averaged 18 points per game. He's gone to BC, and he's been a pretty good scorer for them in his senior season. This is a guy who's bumped from school to school to school, started at UNC Asheville, then went to Northwestern State, then to South Dakota, and now at BC. Again, good on him, though. He's found his way to the ACC and to a starting role. The problem for him, though, he literally plays on the worst team in the ACC. Now, again, I think Forte's pretty solid. It's just there's not much else on this team besides him and Donald Hand. I mean, Fred Payne has scored quite a bit. This is a sophomore who has played at Boston College again all 3 years as well. Averaged 10 points a game, but I mean, 6'1" point guard. I'm not too impressed. Their bigs are not very good at Boston College. Not to say, again, Temple's got a plethora of bigs either. They really only have, 1 or 2 that they really use. They use Babatunde Duradola. He's a sophomore, 6'8", but I mean, he's really plays like a big 4, not a 5 at all. So it's going to be a very small game in terms of, how these teams, just roll out their lineups. Again, Duradola started every single game last year for the Temple Owls, again, starting again this year. He's primarily just a defensive guy, though, doesn't score at all, averaged 4 points per game last season. He's shooting at a 27% clip so far this year. Again, this is just not a shooter. This is not a scorer at all for Temple. He's just primarily defensive guy, and that's okay. Again, I think Temple wins. We just literally saw BC lose to an NEC team in a bye game at home. So what makes you think they're going to go to Temple and win? Now, again, I don't think Temple's the best. They are much better, though, believe me, than Boston College. Boston College is absolutely awful. I'm going to take Temple at home, minus 140, straight up, again, to beat the Boston College Eagles. On to our third best bet of the video. Let's go to some mid-major action. All right. We've got a thriller here, but I think there is an opportunity in this spot, so let's take it, as we've got the New Jersey Institute of Technology, NJIT, hosting one FDU, Fairleigh Dickinson. I believe that's the proper pronunciation on that. Again, the FDU obviously beat Purdue once upon a time in the NCAA tournament. It's not 2019 anymore. That was not 2019. That was 2022, I think. 2022. Regardless, I'm taking NJIT in this spot. I believe they're much better than FDU. This is a game played at 1 o'clock again in Newark, New Jersey. I think the Highlanders are much better. I know they did lose to Fairfield early in the year, which kind of sucks because Fairfield is awful at basketball. I don't care what anybody says. That team's not good. But NJIT, again, loses that game. They've won their other 2. They beat Fordham on the road, which I think is a very impressive victory. Again, what is Fordham going to be in 2025 and 2026? I don't know. Big victory in the last one, though. They fight off Loyola, Maryland, beating the Greyhounds very late in that game. It's a game winner for NJIT as they're 10.5 point dogs in that game. They win it outright. So a huge victory for the Highlanders. Now they've got momentum with FDU coming into town here. And Florida. Fairleigh Dickinson has done nothing but play bye games so far this season, and not obviously they're welcoming teams in to where they play. Obviously, they're going and getting their ass beat every single way that they go. So it's a team that opens the year. Our name's Iowa. They get blown out by Iowa State. They then go to New Jersey to play St. Peter's. For the first time this season, they go to New Jersey. They lose by 10 points. St. Peter's, the Peacocks, put up 93 points on them. And then FDU then goes to Texas and loses 93-58. They get scored on quite a bit. There is really no defensive ability in FDU. This is a Knights team who I don't rate that highly at all from what I have seen out of them this season. They struggle to score for the most part. Eric Parnell is their leading scorer. This is a senior who averaged 4 points per game last year at Hofstra, and now he has to start at FDU and be their primary scorer. And their primary ball handler, don't love that. Deshaun Jackson is another big scorer for them. This is the guy who started at VMI, then went to Northern Colorado, now at FDU. Okay, he's a 10 points per game player so far this season for the Knights. It's a team that does not play good defensive basketball. I look at this lineup, I'm like, I don't know they don't really have good scorers. They've gotten beaten down in every single game that they've played so far this year, and they're used to just taking beatings now on the road. Their season, essentially, for FDU gets started at home on Tuesday when they play Division II St. Elizabeth. And then they get 3 straight home games again with that St. Elizabeth game. Then they get East Texas A&M Commerce, and then they get Army before heading back on the road to Rhode Island to take on Providence. For NJIT, I mean, they will never have more momentum than they have right now. They were not supposed to go on the road and beat Loyola Maryland, but they did. They won a low-scoring defensive battle, and that's the thing. NJIT's defensively, I don't think they're that bad. I saw them hold Fordham to only 61 points, which again, how good are the Fordham Rams? I don't know, but NJIT was a 14.5-point dog in that game, and they don't just go to the Bronx and win. And cover. They win the game, and they don't just win. They win it by 11 points. They almost had the inverse cover there. They were 14.5-point dogs. They almost won by 15 points. Ridiculous stuff. So I've seen this team, go play good defensive basketball so far. They shoot quite a bit of threes. And they're very good defensively. From what I've seen, this is a good defensive squad. Again, in the Fordham game, they shot over 50% from the three-point line. That's really where they get most of their scoring at, and that's okay because, again, if you're a team like this, they turn the ball over a little bit, but you don't have to hit the best rate if you're just going to keep shooting threes like a team like Hawaii. Again, threes are better than twos. So I like NJIT in this spot. You've got a team that you can maybe say is overachieving so far this year, but they're winning, and you can't knock them for that. Led in scoring currently by Ari Fulton, and Fulton is literally doing everything for this team. He's averaging 13 points per game. He's averaging 8 rebounds a game. He plays majority of the game as well. Last game against Loyola Maryland, 29 minutes and 22 points and 14 boards for NJIT. Again, it's his second year with the Highlanders. Started pretty much every single game for them last season. He is back. Also, David Bolden, freshman player for the Institute of Technology. He's averaging 35 minutes a game and over 10 points per game as well. Ultimately, this comes down to, I think, FDU's lack of ability to score. I think, and the fact that they don't play defense either. And I know that's going to sound very, very broad. Well, it's obvious, though. Like, watch this team play. Watch the St. Peter's game. Yeah, they scored 83 points, but they're getting outmatched in that game. Obviously, not much we can take out of their games in Austin and Ames, but they're losing both of those, and they get blown out in both of those games. And there's not really, watching this team, there's not many great pure scorers. And, oh, by the way, they're on the road now against a Highlanders team who has all this momentum. They've won now twice this season as plus 10.5-point dogs, plus double-digit dogs. They've won twice so far this year. They're finally favored in a game for the first time this season. Again, their one loss is against Fairfield. It is what it is. Oddly enough, that's their one home game. They hosted Fairfield, and they were only a 6.5-point dog at home. That's okay. Again, I joke and say the Stags are not good at basketball. They're probably the best team they've played so far this season, so that's fine. I'm going to take NJIT at home. Again, they have so much momentum right now, and I don't think FDU is going to go on the road and pick up their first ever victory this season. I'm going to go with NJIT minus 120 at home to beat the Fairleigh Dickinson Knights. I'm again on the money line. Let's go on now to our fourth best bet of the video. We move to a big Power 5 matchup. Oklahoma takes on Nebraska. SEC versus Big Ten. I'm going with the Big Ten. This is a game at a neutral site. It's being played in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Now, Nebraska is slightly closer to Sioux Falls. Now, I don't think that's going to make the biggest difference here. But regardless, I am taking the Huskers to win. I know their last game was very disappointing, and it was underwhelming to say the least. They beat Maryland Eastern Shore out of the MEAC 69-50. Yeah, I can't have that. But still, I mean, this is a 3-0 team. They now have 2 neutral site games back-to-back. They get Oklahoma here in South Dakota, and they go to Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they go to Kansas City to take on the New Mexico Lobos, who are also undefeated this season. This is a Nebraska team that has seen their highs over the last couple of years, obviously. They play in the Big Ten. If you remember a couple seasons ago, obviously, Tominaga Magic, Keisei Tominaga and that Nebraska team a couple years ago were not projected to be anywhere near the NCAA tournament. They went on their big run, got a 9 seed or an 8 seed, was it? 8 seed in the tournament, ended up losing in the first round to A&M. Last year, Nebraska goes out, doesn't make the NCAA tournament, but wins the first ever college basketball crown. And I get it, who cares about the crown? A lot of teams opted out of it, but still, they won, and Bryce Williams was a monster for them last season. Obviously, Bryce Williams has graduated. I believe he's somewhere in the G League now, so Nebraska's had to find other other scoring options, obviously, because Bryce Williams would have games where he played 38 minutes last year and scored 20-plus points every single night. And I guess they found their next guy. I mean, it's Price Sanford. Sanford's averaging 14 points per game this year. Braden Frager as well is averaging 13. Frager is a freshman, and again, just starting in collegiate basketball. For Sanford, this is a junior player. Was at Iowa last year, was primarily a bench guy for the Hawkeyes, now is in a big-time role and an active scoring role now for the Huskers. As a whole, though, right, Nebraska had to make up again for that big loss last year of Bryce Williams. On top of that, Juwan Gary graduated. There was a whole bunch of seniors that have left the squad. I believe Essigen is their only returning starter, big returning rotational player other than Sam Hoiberg. I guess Hoiberg is still around. I feel like Hoiberg should have graduated already, but he's a senior. Anyways, though, that's fine. Again, Nebraska's got guys. I think the way Frager's been playing, again, in his first 3 games of collegiate hoops, and the way Price Sanford's been playing has been completely fine. Neutral site game, I don't really care. Again, yes, I'd much rather the game be at Lincoln. But when you look at a team like this, yeah, they played a somewhat competitive game. I mean, we're saying somewhat competitive. They still won by 19 points. It was a low-scoring effort, I understand, against the Maryland Eastern Shore Hawks. They were always in control of the game. And I get it, right? You'd like to win by more than 19 points. But look at that game at the end of the first half. Nebraska's up by 13 points. Like, the game is already over at the end of the first half. And I get it. Again, you were 35.5-point favorites. I completely understand. But it's hard to really push a pace when you already know you're going to win the game, and when you're at halftime and your opponents are scoring 19 points. So yes, they did play down to the level of the MEACs, Maryland Eastern Shore. I get that. I think they'll be fine in this spot here, though. We've seen Nebraska earlier in the season, shown capabilities of scoring. Yes, again, the Eastern Shore game, they scored 69 points. Look what they do in the West Georgia game. Look what they do in the FIU game. 86 against West Georgia, 96 against Florida International. I think they're fine. I don't think they're just an all-around, poor shooting and poor scoring team. I think they had a bad night. They shot 18% from the three-point line against Eastern Shore. Now, to their opponents, the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma is a 2-1 team this season. Can't rate their wins at all. They beat up on bad St. Francis, PA, and Arkansas Pine Bluff. The game we can really look at, though, is their loss on the road, taking on Gonzaga and Spokane, Washington. I understand going to Spokane is very difficult against this Zaga team with Graham Ike and Braden Huff. There's some really good players in this team. I mean, they got Tyon Grant Foster coming off the bench and playing 25 minutes. It's a very good Zaga team, I understand. Oklahoma was very outmatched in that game. They go into halftime down by 20 points. And I understand Zaga is going to be really good this year. I'd be very shocked if they don't win the WCC. There's a reason they're going to go to the Pac-12 next year and probably dominate. No, they will dominate Pac-12 hoops. Still, though, it's a very poor performance out of Oklahoma, an Oklahoma team that is trying to, I guess, make up for some of their losses last season. Obviously, the biggest loss, Jeremiah Fears, who is now in the NBA playing with Derek Queen on the New Orleans Pelicans. It's an Oklahoma team that is primarily starting a new starting five, what I mean by new starting five, their entire starting five is new players. Bunch of transfer guys in. Nigel Pack is from Miami. Xavier Brown transferred from St. Joe's. Darian Reed, highly touted prospect from Alabama. Tate Davis in his senior season from Notre Dame. It's a lot of just new players to Oklahoma. And yeah, they're 2-1, but look at their victories again. It's St. Francis, PA, and it's Pine Bluff. Gonzaga game is very telling. Xavier Brown has been their leading scorer this season, again, averaging 19 points per game. Nigel Pack is averaging 16. I don't love it, though. Again, we've seen this team against a Power 5 school once this year, and it has not looked good. I guess Zaga is technically in the WCC, but, I mean, again, Zaga is a power school for the most part. We've seen them against a good team so far this season, and they did not come through. Obviously, I don't think Nebraska is better than Gonzaga, but I do think Oklahoma is going to struggle yet again. Xavier Brown's doing a lot of the scoring. I think Nebraska obviously played down their last game to Maryland Eastern Shore, but I think they should be completely fine in this one against Oklahoma. Neutral site game in Sioux Falls, South Dakota at the Sanford Pentagon, but I do believe, again, Nebraska should be able to get it done. And I'm going with the Huskers to remain undefeated in South Dakota. Give me minus 125 for Nebraska to beat Oklahoma, who, again, to me, obviously, new roster and whatnot. You take away Jeremiah Fears, you take away a couple of those seniors from last season. It is a difficult outing, I believe, for Oklahoma. Give me the Huskers minus 125. On to our final best bet of the video. We go to a later night game. No, we're not ending with a Hawaii game. I might just stop betting on Hawaii games in general. I know we actually don't have the worst record on Hawaii games, but at last night's game, man, I don't know. Like, Manhattan averaged 95 points per game. They walked into Hawaii and scored 55. I don't know. You can't play defense against that team. They've got this, the tall dude from Utah State who whatever, the big fish guy who does this all the time. I can't stand Hawaii athletics sometimes. Anyways, we're going to go to the Save Mart Center for Fresno State and Utah Valley. This is the third time we have featured the Fresno State Bulldogs on the channel this season. We are 1-1 on Fresno State games. We had UC San Diego to beat them in their last outing, and we did pick them to beat SC Upstate and cover against South Carolina Upstate. Obviously, that one did not come through. So we are 1-1 with the Bulldogs this season. The Bulldogs as a whole do have the same winning percentage as us. They're 500. They beat Fresno Pacific. They lost to SC Upstate, beat Long Beach State, who is going to be really bad this year. They were bad last year with Devin Askew scoring 25 points per game. They're still horrible. And obviously the loss for Fresno State against UC San Diego, who's trotting out 12 new players. Fresno State surprisingly is a dog at home here, and I'm going to take the plus money. I kind of wanted to go plus 2.5, but I was like, plus 125 is good enough for the money line, especially because they're taking on Utah Valley, who hasn't played a good team yet. Utah Valley's played nothing but Division II schools, at least beaten nothing but Division II schools. They do go to Boise, Idaho, and they get beat down pretty bad by Boise State. I mean, there is really no defense being played by Utah Valley. Boise, anything that they want in that game, they absolutely get it. Utah Valley, they can't play defense without fouling, and I get it. Referees sometimes in the Mountain West can be very suspicious. I understand. But Boise State gets the line at will in that game. There's really nothing coming back for Utah Valley. Their only scorer was Jackson Holcomb, who scored 22 points in that game. Holcomb is a second-year man at Utah Valley, but there is just not a lot of great players on this team, not a lot of great shooters on this team. They shot 20% from the three-point line, did Utah Valley in that one. Yeah, they've won their other two games, but they beat, West Coast Baptist, 116-35. If you're going to play a D2 school, at least, schedule a D2 school that makes it seem like it's a believable Division II opponent. The West Coast Baptist Eagles scored 35 points in a basketball game and shot 18% from the field. What are we supposed to do with that? What are we supposed to do? And then their last game for Utah Valley, they played Westminster D2 school in Utah. They win 91-60. Okay. I mean, whatever. Led in scoring by Tyler Hendricks. Hendricks is a junior, averaging 14.5 points per game so far this season, but really all you need to see is, look what happens when they played Boise. Hendricks scored 6 points. Yeah, he's putting up numbers for, against these D2 schools. It's a player who was at UCF last year, really could not crack big minutes with the Central Florida Knights, only scored 3 points per game last season for them. He's averaging 15 right now, but again, against Division I opponents, he's averaging 6 points per game. And that's the thing. You go from playing these bummy D2 schools to now, I get it, Fresno State sometimes plays like a D2 school in all fairness, but you go from playing all these schools to now on the road, in front of nobody, in a dead big arena that seats 16,000 people, 14,000 people. Trust me, if there's a wrestling show in Fresno, people will come out. But you're going on the road and playing this team in this weird, Fresno State, they had the gambling thing last year. I don't know why I mentioned that. It's besides the point. But in a weird dead arena, football team is playing at the same exact time, oddly enough, which is, why would you schedule it this way? I mean, I get it. But Fresno actually gets good attendance for their football games. They're playing Wyoming at the same exact time as their basketball team's playing Utah Valley. I don't understand. But that's okay. We're going to take Fresno in a weird, dead environment type game. I'm taking the Fresno State Bulldogs. I understand this team did not look good against UC San Diego. I was very impressed by one player, though, and that was Jack Manny. Jack Manny had himself a day. Very surprisingly, this is a guy who was not really, looking into that UC San Diego game. I was not saying, oh, look at, Jack Manny. This guy averaged 8 points per game prior to the UCSD game. In the UCSD game, Jack Manny scores 21 points and has 7 rebounds, and goes 2 for 3 from beyond the arc and 8 for 9 from the field. Can't shoot free throws. Shot 50% from the line, but I was very surprised. Again, this is not really a notable player at UC Davis. He averaged 3 points per game at UCD, and now he comes to Fresno, and he had a really good big game where he scored. His first big game where he played 25 minutes, he scores 21 points. I think there's stuff to build on for the Fresno State Bulldogs. Do I think this is going to be a good team in the Mountain West? No. I think that Jake Heidebreder can be okay. He's their primary shooter, primary three-point shooter, averages 18 points per game. He's a senior, obviously. Came from Clemson, originally started at Air Force. He's a guy who's just going to, keep chucking threes all game long. If he gets hot, he's pretty solid. Zayon Collins is their biggest returner from last year. Again, averaged 12.5 points per game last season for the Bulldogs. He's returning. Zayon Collins can hoop. To me, again, I'm looking at Utah Valley and I just see too many fake stats. Like, yeah, you played Boise and you lost. You got it handed to you. You had one player really show up in the Boise game on the road in Idaho, and then your other games, you've played nothing but Division II schools. And now, I get it, Fresno State's not the best team, but it's still a huge jump in competition. I just don't love it here for Utah Valley on the road. So I'm going to go with the Fresno State Bulldogs to win in our final game of the night at 7 o'clock. Again, really weird scheduling from the Bulldogs. You have a football game and a basketball game starting at the same exact time. And the football game, might start, I think, 30 minutes later, but regardless, really weird scheduling. We'll still take Fresno State here. We're taking them in football as well if you want that pick as well. But yes, we're going to take Fresno State on the money line plus 125. I think this is great value. I don't think they should be dogs against Utah Valley, and I think Utah Valley is being very overrated because of their Division II victories. So give me Fresno State. Folks, that'll do it for our college basketball best bets here on November 15th. If you haven't yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you did disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow for more daily college basketball best bets. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.